Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Roll Call. I'm your host, Joseph Giacalone. And for those of you that might not know what roll call is at the beginning of the tour, the police officers get together and the supervisor gives them their assignments for the day. And if you want to know a pop culture version, then you got to look no further than Hill Street Blues and the Be Careful Out There, which became a really popular tag phrase for years, and people still use it. But without further ado, we have everyone's favorite retired NYPD detective, Mike Alcazar, who, Mike, good to see you, but totally unannounced Court TV duo yesterday. So we had roll call yesterday on Court TV.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was totally unplanned for the viewers that have seen it. I was about to go on and I texted Joe. I said, Joe, are you on this thing? And he goes, yeah, me too. I was like, oh, that's funny.
It was funny because I didn't know that you were going to be on there. I said if we would have did, I would have advertised roll call is going to be on Court TV this morning with Julie
Right?
Grant. But that would have been well. Actually, Julie didn't know either. So I had whispered in the guy's ear that I said Mike and I have been friends for a long time, so this is actually pretty funny. So so anyway, lots of stuff that happened yesterday. A couple of things, couple of cases we're going to catch people up on, but we're going to start off with the Karen Reed case because I think that's the big case that everybody's following. That I think Chad Daybell is another one that's going on out in Idaho. I think people are following that one, and then this Morphu case. I don't know if I pronounced the name wrong, but that one's starting to heat up with this animal tranquilizer and stuff like that. But we're not going to get into that one today. But we're going to get into the Karen Reed case, Mike, because that's what we were talking about yesterday. There's some interesting things that developed yesterday. The first day, so yesterday was day two. There's nothing happening in that case today, though. So that which I thought was pretty interesting. They're not going to have any court sessions. But what was some of your takeaways so far that you've gotten out of this, Mike?
Uh, I was really shocked, and I could be biased because I'm law enforcement. How many people are supporting Karen Reed?
Well,
They're picketing outside, they're protesting outside, showing their support for her. They believe her story. And I'm thinking, I also attribute this to people just have a lot of distrust for law enforcement, and they're buying this story that this is a mass conspiracy to frame her and to cover up uh, what happened in this case, which maybe because we're law enforcement, Joe, we know that's just not that easy to do.
yeah.
What's that saying you always say about
Oh, Ben
three?
Franklin. Yeah, Ben
Yeah,
Franklin. Three people can keep a secret as long as two of them are dead. Yeah,
it's
we're
so,
gonna
so true.
we're gonna get into that because you actually hit on a couple of points that I really wanted to talk about. And people think that we script this. This is totally unscripted, folks. We just go and run with this. The first thing is about that anti-cop thing, and that's what kind of leads to these conspiracy things. Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of years, we've seen it. We've seen the ever really since the Derek Chauvin uh, murder up in Minneapolis. That's really had kind of set this thing off in motion. And it comes to a point now the cops are all corrupt and the cops can't do this and the cops can't do that. And, I think that's what was the main driver of this. And this is my opinion, of course, that is the main driver of this conspiracy theory for it. But we're going to get into that conspiracy theory because I think it falls apart pretty quickly. But yeah, Mike, I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah, and if our viewers are watching the court proceedings, especially the interview with that police officer, Schraff,
Saraf,
Sarah,
Saraf. Yeah, we're going to discuss
Sarah,
that.
this guy is a mental midget. I hate to make fun of him, but this guy is not capable of any conspiracy. This guy, oh yeah, we'll get into it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all of that because we want to break that down because it becomes I think a pivotal part. Yeah, and he actually, I kind of predicted what was going to happen if you recall
You
yesterday
did,
when yeah, and I think even Julie was like, "How did you know that?" I'm like,
yeah.
that's just the way it was going to go. I mean, so there's so many different working parts here, and a lot of times, and Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong what I see now, not only in this case, but I see it in Brian Kohlberger, and we're starting to see it in a lot of other cases. the thing that we always worried about detectives doing, where you come up with your theory, you marry that theory, and then you pick and choose what evidence you want to find in order to prove your theory. We know that's detrimental to the case, but I'm starting to see that in a lot of the theories that get put out on true crime, social media, YouTube, you name it, that fatal mistake that we don't want detectives making. We're seeing people in the true crime community, and that's why I think they're just so what's the word I'm looking for? So steadfast in what their opinion is because they found a piece of evidence that proved their theory correct.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And in the defense, in the Karen Reed case, he came up with this theory and he's running with it. I mean, I know you feel the same way. I don't know if our viewers feel the same way, but it's like a movie. I was like, my God, this guy should be a movie director. He's scripting this in a way and he's selling it good, right? Because he's charismatic. The defense attorney, I forget his name. He's very passionate.
Alan Jackson, I think.
Alan Jackson, great name. Isn't that like a singer or something?
Yeah, it's a country music singer, I think.
In contrast to the prosecutor, who you have to check for a pulse. This guy, you got, if his eyes weren't open, you'd probably think he's sleeping. So it's presentation is a big part of a trial in court, and the jury is, I'm sure, getting influenced by that. Definitely the viewers watching the case.
Yes, and I agree with that. There's no I think it's Lolly, I think is the DA's name is, right? So he's very monotone, he's very what do you call it? But if you just look at the opening statement, Karen Reed was framed, right? Caught everybody's attention. So if you were writing a fiction novel, right, you always look for that first tagline in your first sentence of your paragraph, whatever it may be. And that's exactly what he did. He caught everybody's attention, I think, the jury's specifically. But then he makes the statement that the cops they're all doing this conspiracy theory and they're all doing this. And now he's actually proven that the cops are incompetent, which doesn't equal to a conspiracy. So I think he initially started off in the right way, but his line of questioning and what he went after is not adding up. And I think it's going to hurt him in the long run.
I said this yesterday. I think he's just confident that he has enough evidence to prove this case. And maybe that's why he's very nonchalant about it, very businesslike. And again, the defense is more animated because he's got to swing over the jury, the votes towards, his case. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, he just needs one. He just needs one to swing over and create that hung jury. I mean, I guess most people realize that most cases don't go to trial. And it's like I think it's like 2% of all cases go to trial, but out of those 2%, 85% of them get convicted. So the ball is generally always in the prosecution's favor in regards to this, and that's something else that you have to think about when you're doing this stuff. And I'm not saying we're going to predict the outcome of this because we're starting to just hear about certain things now in the case, and this is why I also tell people, like, you can't be this passionate and hung up that somebody's either innocent or guilty because we haven't even been told all the evidence of the case. Not in Karen Reed, not in Delphi, not in Brian Kohlberger. We don't even know a quarter of it.
Yeah, for my NBA playoff fans out there, it's just the first quarter, folks, and it's going to turn in the last few minutes of the fourth quarter. So listen, I get it because I'm watching Alan Jackson and I'm like, that's a good point. I'm starting to see what he's saying. I can see why he might raise doubt, in the jury and with people watching it. So
he's been very good. I mean, the guy's got a hell of a resume. I think he got Kevin Spacey off, right? So that's something to think about.
That's poor choice of words there.
All right, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, he's got quite the resume. But if you'll take a look at Lolly and you take a look at what he's doing, yes, he's not passionate, he's not this and that, and that could hurt him because people want to get a little. I mean, I've been in the jury box, never been picked, but I've been sat through the whole process. It's like you're counting the tiles in the roof, and it's boring, and you don't want to be bored on top of that, and that's what I worry about because people's attention span is really low. They can't use their phones. They can't do any of this stuff. And it is sitting there like, twiddling their thumbs, and it becomes an issue. But what I do like, and I don't know if people realize this or not, and maybe they are. Lolly is gone. He's doing this case in chronological order. He's not
Gotcha.
jumping around. He's
Yeah.
doing it right. He started off with the first officer on the scene, and then now he's got the firefighters who were doing the CPR. So I'm assuming he's going to continue going that route, and he's laying out the case from crime scene to courtroom, which I think is a good move. I think it's because it shows the progress or the progression, excuse me, of what transpired, who did what, when they did it, what was found, because he's going up against this conspiracy theory that the cops are framing his client, right? Because that's what the defense has said. My client was framed.
Yeah, it's smart. It's smart. He's doing the timeline. It's easier to go straight forward and then go back and forth to clarify. But you're right. And I feel like Alan Jackson is kind of like jumping around a little bit. I get it. He's trying to make his case, but you're right. It's a good strategy by Lally. I'm sure he's done it before. I'm sure it's proven, won cases for him. So he's sticking to what's tried and true.
Yeah, and I think, listen, going in chronological order is never a bad idea because jumping around can cause confusion. And I think specifically in this case, there's enough confusion is going to be put out by the defense, right? That's their job. The defense is doing a great job in trying to get their point across. So, you don't hate the player, right? You hate the game if you didn't like what he's doing. I mean, it's just, if I'm on trial, I want my defense attorney to do anything or everything he or she can do.
Of course, 100%, 100%, and he is.
Right. Like I said, I'm not pro Karen Reed. I'm not anti Karen Reed. I'm pro criminal justice in regards to making sure that it gets done correctly. Because if it doesn't, that affects us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start off with Officer, is it Sarif? I think it was. So we had to watch his testimony yesterday when we were doing the court TV. And I kind of predicted where this was headed. And it was headed where, like the old saying, if it's not documented, it wasn't done. And you can't go into court and say, well, this is what I heard or this is what I saw, and you didn't have the time. And you saw the way those rapid fire questions were coming. So do you believe that a report should be accurate? Yes. Do you believe that the police should be making sure, right? And he's yes. He's hitting them with all those rapid fire questions, and you know what's coming. And then say, well, how come you didn't write this in your report? Big mistake.
Yeah, been there, done that. I know exactly what was going on, just like you. We've testified in court hundreds of times. We know he's locking you in. He's locking you into your statement, and then he's going to challenge what you wrote. So he fell for that trap. I think we should clarify that this guy, Saraf, is probably the first responding officer, right?
Yes.
He was the first responding officer. So he's a uniformed member of the service. He's not a detective. And I think it's a little confusing because...
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, he should have been in uniform testifying.
100%. 100%.
If you're a uniform cop, I don't care if you're off duty. If you're getting paid, you're going to fit your role. He goes in with the suit and tie, dressed perfectly, but he looks like a detective.
Yeah.
And this was a problem, I think, for the prosecutor. Now, I haven't heard anybody mention this, Michael. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
You dress for your role, because if you don't, there's a good possibility that the jury is going to be confused. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm a jury member who knows nothing, the stupid thing, if I'm a jury member that knows nothing, I think he's the detective in the case.
Yeah.
And now he's telling us all this wrong information. Listen, from a patrol cop perspective, right? So if he's there in uniform and he's showing up, people understand what his role was. His role was, you have this emergency going on. It's snowing. It's a blizzard. And none of that stuff came out, right? So if I'm that cop that's on the trial, on the stand, and I've been on the stand, and the weather is always a factor in your testimony. Simple as that. I don't care if it's sunny out. I don't care if it's raining. In this case, he has a huge. It's a nor'easter blizzard. And I got a guy who looks like he's dead. I got all these people running around. I'm by myself. I think it would have been a lot easier for him on the stand, because you could say, well, I made a mistake because all the chaos was going on. I was trying to make
100%.
chaos into, but it didn't come off that way. And it looked like he didn't have control of the scene, which he kind of doesn't. And then that brings up
Absolutely.
yeah, and that was something that we were talking about offline. I think that
Yeah.
was a big mistake.
Absolutely. When the jury sees him step up to the box wearing this suit, he's an older police officer. There's an expectation that this guy is a detective. He's an expert. They don't know he's just a uniformed cop. Not to knock uniformed cops, but juries make up their mind right away with first impressions. You walk into the suit, they think you're a detective, they think you're an expert, and then boom, this guy's getting torn apart and making him look incompetent, very incompetent. And in the minds of the jury, this guy is the detective in charge of this case, so it didn't look good. And he's right. He even said it in his testimony that I think the defense said that he had a homicide scene, and he said, I didn't know what I have. I didn't know if it was a homicide. And he's 100% right. He had an unconscious male, and he thinks it probably at the time that it was an accident, right? This guy cracked his head. So, which is bad, right? Either way, you got to set up a crime scene, right? But he's just the first responding officer. I wonder if they're going to bring in a supervisor that showed up on the scene. Probably 100%. They probably will. They're going to probably, put everybody on the box that was responding to the scene. So hopefully those people are better prepared after watching this poor guy get slapped around for like an hour or so by the defense.
Well, I'm going to get back to that point, but I think the supervisor's name was Good with an E. But if you recall, Mike, he or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, put themselves at the scene with another officer at the scene, and they weren't. I mean, the dash
With the
cam video.
transcript.
Right. So
Yeah,
we're
with the
going to get to
call
that.
record.
Yeah, they're not going to have an easy time with this either. But Dee Dee kind of pulls up a point here. She says, that's a very good point. 100%. I thought he was a detective until you just now said otherwise. Exactly. I mean, this is, and people think that, oh, come on, Joe and Mike, this is not a big deal. It is a big deal. You're in a jury. Like, for folks, we're in this room. We can talk and speculate, or we can have opinions about everything that we're talking about. That's fine. But when you're trying to convince only 12 people about what the role was of the police, and if the police were really bad and they conspired, I mean, it's not that difficult. I'm not trying to convince the 100,000 people. I'm still getting hate mail from the Brian Koberger case, that the story video I did the other day. People are still sending me hate mail, but it's we're talking about tens of thousands of people to try to convince. We're not trying to convince anybody. We're just laying out certain things that we find not a good thing. So I want to see now if the Sergeant Good and the other cop shows up in uniform. I really would like to see that, because I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the transcript. We talked about that in court TV. They're absolutely going to be put on the stand, because the defense is going to destroy them, and it's going to show that all three of them were incompetent and recorded things, improperly.
Right. Well, and this is where I said before, the beginning in my opening statement. He starts off with, there's a conspiracy against his client, and now they're just proving incompetence. And an incompetence doesn't equal a conspiracy. And I think that's going to hurt him. Because if you're telling me that this guy Sarif is part of the conspiracy, boy, the conspiracy's in a lot of trouble.
They picked the wrong guy.
Well, that's the problem with conspiracies, right? This is the problem. That's the problem with conspiracy. You're telling me, okay, the local police, the state police, the fire department, the crime lab, they're all in on this?
No way.
I find it very unbelievable. Could I find maybe one or two people have done something? Of course, right? One person, yes. Two people, we're even talking, danger zone at that point too.
The firemen, right? The firemen to respond to the scene. All the residents in the house. That's too many people, And if it was a conspiracy involving that many people, the truth will come out. The truth will come out.
They'll break it, because it's going to be easy. Like, there's going to be people, like there's a woman that everybody's been focused on. Like, I think her name is Jen. She's getting called to the stand. So people have been focused on this Jen lady. That one is going to be epic too. But let's get back to Sarif. So Sarif, Well, it's just it was just a rich environment, unfortunately, that this started off. So he testified yesterday that the dispatch log, which is when the 911 call comes in, the 911 operator will send out a sector car and put them in there. And then in New York City, we had this radio call, radio thing. We would say 84, which meant stop the clock. And the reason why that becomes important for the police department is that it reduces your response times. So if I'm driving to a scene and it is emergency, right? So this is an emergency. We have an unconscious male. The department tracks specifically those cases when how long did it take you to get there from the time you got the call to the time you arrived. Now, granted, there's a blizzard going on. So, these things can be adjusted for that. But you stop the clock when you get there. So I'm 84 or whatever radio code they say, that stops the clock. We saw some shenanigans happen even on our job when, Mike, when people would get caught, say, yeah, I'm 84 just to stop the clock, and they're nowhere near the scene. Now we have dispatch showing the sergeant on the scene and another sector car on the scene, which we don't see show up on the dash cam, and we don't see them there. And this now presents another problem for the prosecution.
So we don't know if the responding officers actually said they're 84 on the scene or to stop the clock. That could have been, I don't know, the dispatcher that did that. Maybe. Right. So, because if I had a body cam, there's no way I'm going to say I've arrived on the scene and I know there's a body cam. That's just, that's just not prudent. That just doesn't make any sense. It's going to be challenged, and it is.
Yes, and if that's the case, if I'm the prosecutor at this point, I'm finding out that dispatcher, I'm dragging him or her into court, and have them explain what they did, because it's making this entire initial stage of this investigation look bad. And we need to find out if this is something that is done all the time. Maybe she was just maybe they do this to say these are the three cars that are going to respond. But maybe that notification, that time is the notification that he or she made to those sectors, right? So get that dispatcher in there and have him or her explain what those things mean. Because right now it looks as if two people, including the supervisor, say they're there and they're not.
For all we know, it could be them just acknowledging that they received the job and they're en route. It could be very simple as that. It's good. The defense is good. That they just started and they're picking apart these little things, and it's definitely making the police department look so incompetent. And he's doing a good job.
Firefly says no uniforms as per the judge. I don't know, Firefly. We have to find out if that's for people who are in the audience. I think that's more for the people in the audience, because the judges often do that when you have, like, since when there's a cop killed or whatever, that they stack the courtroom with uniformed cops. And if you recall, the defense had them switch to a much smaller courtroom, I think, to avoid the courtroom getting filled with cops. And I think would it be, Firefly? But maybe we can verify that, because if that was for the stand, that's going to be, well, that's if it was for the stand, because people are saying that the judge is anti Karen Reed. So if that's the case, she did them a favor, the Karen Reed crew a favor then.
I've never heard a judge dictating what you can wear when you're testifying. You're a witness or a police officer or a victim. So, but
Bernie's saying the same thing. No uniforms, but I think that's for the audience. So if they didn't want the off-duty cops showing up in uniform and packing up the stadium. So I think maybe we could get some clarification on that, Bernie, too. So let's get back into Sarif. So he's forced to say that these people were allegedly at the scene and they're not. That's one issue. Then then the defense brings out on Sarif that did you what did you say in the was a grand jury? And they asked him specifically, were you prepped? Did you speak to anybody before testifying today? And he says no. How could that be, right? So the answer is always, I spoke to the district attorney before talking. There's a trial prep. I mean, So Bo Pete is saying, nope. She even said no stand for the uniforms on the stand for the uniform. That would be a really interesting part. Mia Beato, thank you very much for gifting that membership. I really appreciate that. That's an interesting little tidbit there.
I wonder why. Oh, you know why?
No,
Because the case is probably because they're thinking there's corruption and a cover up. Maybe that's why.
I don't know. I've never seen it. I've never seen a judge tell the cops who are testifying that you can't wear a uniform. Never seen that.
It's smart. It's smart because if the judge is pro-police and the police are now basically on trial, don't put them in uniform so the jury doesn't judge them right away as the police are. Instead, they're in civilian clothes. That's actually brilliant, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps if that's the case, then even though that's listen, put it this way, the judge is the boss, and if she ordered it, that's fine. But then, like I said, that actually helps the defense as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
because it gives a different impression for this guy Sarif about how this investigation goes, because he didn't document basic things. It's not a confession. People say it's a confession. It wasn't a confession. It was, if he said it was an admission, if anything, her admission saying that I did it. Fofa says, thank you. Membership for 3 months, says she's been banned law enforcement uniforms inside the court, both for people testifying and people sitting in the audience per buffer zone order. Thank you. That's, learning something there. But then now I understand why he's not in uniform. And that's still, I still have an issue with that. So even the firefighters have to be in non-uniform. Very interesting.
Okay.
But I think people can see our point, though, about why this is going to cause lots of confusion. But still, basic stuff. Like, if you hear somebody say, I did it, or I hit him, that has to get written down in your report.
100%.
I don't care if it's snowing. I don't care if it's snowing, raining, tornado. If someone makes an admission like that at the scene, because it's not the job of the police officer at that moment, and to make an arrest and do all that stuff, he or she, whoever shows up there, make sure that nobody leaves. Render aid to the victim is always number one.
100%.
Always number one. It doesn't matter. So there's people saying, like, the prosecutor, excuse me, the defense saying that there was a woman that walked off the scene. It happens, right? He's one person there at the scene. Lots of stuff going on. Your number one role is to aid the victim. And sometimes when you're aiding the victim or trying to watch what's happening, things can get a little screwy.
I want to go back to what you said about the trial prep. I just want to clarify that some police officers get nervous when they understand it. Did you talk to anybody before testifying? And it's perfectly fine to say that you spoke to, the prosecutor. You have to rehash the case. That's fine. That's not corruption. It's just going over the information you're going to be testifying on. So that's perfectly normal. Trial prep is perfectly normal.
Yep. And I used to tell the detectives, if they ask you, have you spoken to anybody before you came today? The answer is always yes. I sat down with the prosecutor for trial preparation. It's expected.
Yeah.
How are you going to remember from 2 years ago? Exactly.
And in fact, as a rookie, I remember a district attorney telling me that she knows I'm wet behind the ears. And she prepped me and she said, if they ask you if you talked to anybody before, yeah, you could tell them that we discussed the case. That's perfectly fine. And I like that. It's a learning lesson for a rookie police officer, which I remembered for the rest of my career.
And I think this case is going to be something that's going to be taught in textbooks and courtrooms and everything else going forward, because some of the things that I've seen is just not good for your courtroom testimony, especially in a homicide case. I mean, one thing Sarif did do, which I do like, and you had mentioned it already, Mike, when he had said, I didn't know what I had yet, right? Because he said, they kept on saying homicide. I didn't know what they had yet. And I wish departments would use the word, there's a death investigation, right? Because that kind of sums up the entire thing. When you use death investigation, you are now covering all your manners of death, and you're not making any assumptions in your own head, right? Because just like we said before, if you say, I have a suicide, or I have an accidental death, that's what you're going to try to prove. And that becomes a problem in police investigations.
Yeah, that's perfect. I like that term. Absolutely.
Bernie, why would the judge order the victim not to be addressed as Officer O'Keefe? So disrespectful, in my opinion. I don't know, Bernie. I mean, I guess maybe because he was off duty, and and a lot of stuff is getting conflated with the police in some of these things, and maybe what Mike had said before about, like you had brought up, Bernie, about not wearing the uniforms, that they don't want the constant thing about hearing police, 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 because if there is a anti-cop bias, then you're just inviting more stuff to it. But I don't know. We're just
I got
discussing what we saw.
I have a little experience with that with a civil case. So I had a civil case, motor vehicle accident. I was the victim, so we were suing the other the occupant of the other motor vehicle. And I know that my lawyer probably thought that they were going to bring up that I was a detective. So throughout the case, my lawyer just kept referring to me as Detective Alcazar. Detective Alcazar. So much so that I think the jury was numb to it because it just took away the bite from his lawyer presenting that I was a detective. So this could be, again, the opposite of what they're doing over there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring that up when we talk about the cross examination of the firefighter in a second, because I think that's exactly what the defense did wrong there. But if you're just tuning in now, we're about 31 minutes into this, 250 people watching. Thank you for joining us here at Roll Call. I'm your host, Joseph Giacalone, and with us is retired NYPD Detective Mike Alcazar. We're still talking about the Karen Reed case. So just please remember to like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. We blew through 9,000 subs, Mike. So we're at 90. We're on our way to 9,300 already. So that's good. So I want to thank you all for your support, and thank you for the mods too. You guys do a great job keeping law and order in there. And you have, we're building on this channel. We're building the most informed group on YouTube, because we do these quizzes 6 days a week. So if you're new to the channel, because there's a lot of new people to the channel, go to the community tab. There are basically, I guess there's almost like 75 questions now that you can take and try to test your knowledge on forensics and criminal investigations. So let's jump back into some of this testimony that we have. So yeah, Officer Seraph kind of was that first sacrificial lamb that that went in there. But you know what though? Unfortunately, some of it is at his own doing, and it's just listen. I got embarrassed in court when I was a rookie cop, and you say to yourself, it's never going to happen to me again. Right? And it's never going to happen to me again. And you then take steps, and you start listening to other people, right? Because there's always that older guy or gal in the police department that tries to give you advice, but you know everything, right? I know everything. No, you don't know everything. We all, and unfortunately, some of us have to learn the hard way. And you learn that when you get embarrassed in court. And and I guarantee you that Officer Seraph will never have this issue again. I can guarantee you that.
I don't know. He doesn't look very sharp.
All right, for the poor guy.
Poor guy. He's got that deer in the headlights look throughout the whole. Throughout the whole.
Oh Jesus, Mike.
I felt bad. I felt bad for him.
Oh boy. All right. We'll leave it at that. That poor guy. I feel bad for him, but he's got to. And it's a training issue. It's as simple as that. This police
100%.
department needs some training. Like, I didn't see any crime scene tape being put up. I didn't see, once the fire department shows up to start working on the victim, I don't see him taking control of the scene.
Yeah.
I don't see any of this. And this becomes a problem now from a former supervisor point of view, right? Because now here the supervisor should be at the scene trying
100%.
to do this. And this is where I now want to know where Sergeant or Lieutenant Good or whoever he or she is, where were they and what were you doing? Because this becomes now a problem for your case, right? You got people walking all over your crime scene. You got all things happening. And people say, well, how do you know it was not a homicide? It was an accident. It's not a crime scene. It's a crime scene. Until the investigation is done, it's a crime scene. It's as simple as that.
Plus, your officers. You got Seraph on the scene. You better get your butt over there before he screws this thing up.
Oh God! All right. We'll leave this poor guy alone.
Okay, we'll stop beating up Seraph.
Yeah, we'll stop. He got beat up enough yesterday in court, so we don't want to. But listen, there's some teachable moments here, right? There's some teachable moments, and from the supervisor point of view, boy, this is something that you really got to think about. So JD says this judge is interesting. Lawyers only allowed to say objection, not only to give any definition of objection. She just definitively seems particular. JD, I agree, but each courtroom is run by their own judge, right? He or she is their own little king or queen of the court, and they can do whatever they like in that respect. So it's just something. It is what it is. But what Seraph did do, though, he did do well. He didn't jump to an answer. So when he was asked a question, he kind of hesitated a little bit because there were so many objections. See, a lot of times cops will jump and answer the question, and then the objection comes and the answer's out. So he did do that very well.
Yes, you have to give your lawyer, the prosecution, a chance to, raise an objection. I mean, he looks like he's got tenure on, so I'm confident he's testified before, maybe not well, but, it is Boston. I'm sure he's testified a lot in court.
Yeah, no, so I think he did do that well. And I said, there's some other people, there'll be other detectives, there'll be other people that will watch very carefully as they go forward, because you're going to see some make a mistake. They're going to be asked the question, they're going to answer before the objection can be raised. And there were lots of objections that were given, and the judge denied them. No, excuse me, the judge allowed those objections almost every time, except for just once, if I recall.
Yeah, she runs a tight ship. I like her. She's no nonsense. She's apparently setting the rules. Yeah, I'm really more interested to watch it now because of her. So very cool.
Yeah, but let's just see if other people wait to give the answer, right? So especially in those rapid fire questions, right? So the rapid fire questions from a defense is kind of a standard thing. They ask you these questions, boom, 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 and you have to know you're being set up at that point, because they're going to ask you a question that's going to take some thought, and you're going to, like, basically, what's your name? Joe. What did you do? And and you could just name these things pretty easily, and then all of a sudden it says, how many feet were you standing from, blah 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 blah, and then you're like, whoa, and it leaves a bad impression for the jury. So you have to.
Yeah, I think that's a failure. That's a failure on the district attorney's part to prep their police officers. I mean, they all watch Sarap now. So anybody else that's testifying, they saw what happened, and I'm hoping Lally is gonna prep them better for this.
Well, if they're not allowed in the courtroom, right? Because they might not be, because of all these rules, and the courtroom is tiny. So they moved from the big courtroom to the small one as per the defense's request, which was to limit, I think, how many cops could come in and watch what's going on. So we don't know that for sure. But here's the thing. If I'm Lolly, right, there's a day off today. There's no day off. You're bringing in all your people, all the cops specifically, and firefighters that you're going to be examining on the stand, and you're prepping every one of them today. I don't care if you're going to be up till 4 o'clock in the morning and you got caught. This has to be fixed. You got to get the answers done, because if you, the district attorney, would have identified issues with the dispatch log, you could have had that answered out, right? You could have said, Officer Saraf, the dispatch shows this. What happens? Well, they always, when they just assign the job, they just put the 2 people in automatically. Boom. Argument is not. There's no more argument. So when the defense now would have come up, he would have kind of sunk his battleship, and that's something that you have to plan on doing. So, Elf, would you come out of your house if someone died on your lawn? Probably. Let's hope that never happens. Specifically if I might be the reason why he's there. There's a question, and that question I think is going to be answered. There's going to be people that are going to be brought in to this, and I think this is going to get wild. I think we're actually at the really dull area of this trial so far.
It's dull, but it's exciting. You're just watching Saraf get picked apart. I was like, wow, that great video, like a learning lesson for all law enforcement, for lawyers, for people that are eventually going to testify, sometime in their lives. Very interesting to watch, for sure.
Definitely some teachable moments here for law enforcement, for sure.
If we have time at the end, I have a story about testifying. Okay. And it kind of fits in this thing. So,
all right.
I know it's a shocker. I have a story. It's a shocker.
All right. Well, tell us now before I get into the next question.
Oh, do you really? Okay. Yeah. So I'm a rookie, brand new rookie. We respond to a man with a gun the responding sector get there first. They make the arrest. There's a little bit of a scuffle. They recovered a gun. They make the arrest, right? So they transport the gun back to the precinct. Now, the two police officers end up getting hurt. So they can't process the arrest. So the sergeant says, Mike, you're going to be assigned this arrest. You're going to process the arrest. Cool. That's the scenario. We'll go to trial for the gun, right? The two police officers are testifying, and they're telling the district attorney, not testifying, it's in prep. They're telling the district attorney that they responded, made the arrest, recovered the gun. And they're saying to the district attorney that they gave the gun to me at the scene, which wasn't the case. I'm a rookie. I haven't done many of these. I remember everything. The gun was given to me at the precinct, which is not a problem. I know they're concerned about chain of custody, and they're probably worried about, like, oh my God, they planted this gun. But that's not what happened. Anyway, I'm brand new. I'm like 22 years old. The district attorney sees this, and she goes, well, the other two officers said that they gave it to you at the scene, right? And I'm like, that's not what happened. They gave it to me at the precinct. And then later on, the other two cops are trying to tell me, Mike, just tell him I gave it to you on the scene. I said, I'm not going to say that. You know, that's lying in court. I don't want to lose my job for a nonsense gun collar. Anyway, the DA pressured me more. Pardon my French. She goes, you're going to fuck up this case, me, because I'm saying the truth. And then I got annoyed. I'm 22, but I got annoyed. And I told her, well, when you ask that question, I'm going to give that answer. So you better skirt around that or do that lawyer shit that you do. And then, you know, so that I won't sink your case for you. And that's exactly what she did. I don't know how she did it. There was a time that she came in possession with the weapon, blah, blah, blah. And no big deal. No big deal. But I always tell this to my students. Be strong with your convictions. This is your life. This is your case. This is your job. Are you going to sacrifice it for an arrest? You're going to lose your job. Your family's going to be shamed because you were fired because you lied in court. And similar to that, you know, I mean, that's the bad part of prepping a police officer. Sometimes you have these aggressive district attorneys, these lawyers that just are willing to sacrifice you to make their case easier.
Of course, you're the sacrificial lamb. They're not getting in trouble. You are. Ashley gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much, Ashley. That was very generous of you. It's lying is never an option. Simple as you understand, lying is never an option. You're gonna lose your job. You could go to jail. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the firefighter, or he's a firefighter, or I don't know if he's an EMT, but the firefighter, this guy, his name is Timothy Nuttall. He was cross-examined yesterday by the defense attorney, and the defense went the same route to try to prove that he heard something and then didn't testify to the exact thing. So what happened is Nuttall said, I heard someone say I hit him. And he was kind of, I think, pressing him to say who said this. And he says, I'm trying to do life care here. Wasn't really, what do you call it? And then he asked the question again. And he says, I heard a number of times a female say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Oh, I think the defense made a bad move here because you asked the question, you didn't get the answer you wanted. So then you tried it again, and it only reinforced, and the jury then heard him say, I heard a female voice say multiple times, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. I think that, to me, was a turning point for the prosecutor. I think you got to put that checkbox for the win in the prosecutor, even though at the end, he was able to get Nuttall to say, well, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on. Maybe that wasn't exactly thing. It didn't matter. The cat was already out of the bag, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
he was a good witness for the prosecution, for sure. And yes, and there was a little funny interaction there with his accent too. If you saw that, where
2 youths.
Yeah.
Furrow. Could you imagine me and you up there testifying? You know, like
in Boston.
Yeah, it would be like the My Cousin Vinny stuff all over again. I don't know. People say I have an accent. I don't know. I don't have an accent. Yeah,
it's funny because there was another My Cousin Vinny scene like with Karen Reed, because he's saying, right, the fireman's saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. I think she's saying, I hit him, I hit him. It's like that. I shot the clerk. So
Yeah.
that could be a defense,
Yeah, I shot the clerk. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Was it a question? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And if you recall, in the opening statement that the other day that the prosecutor did make, and it stuck with me, he's like, "We're going to show you that basically the computer in the car showed that the car was going in reverse 24 miles per hour in reverse in the snow." And then he left it at that. So everybody just hold tight because there is so much more coming. This was only the tip of the iceberg as far as we know. So anything else on this Karen Reed thing, Mike? Because there's no trial today, but we'll probably pick up on this another day, maybe Friday or Monday, because it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about with Karen Reed?
Yeah, no, it's just definitely something interesting to watch. I hate to say I've enjoyed it. I have. I'm watching it with my girlfriend. I'm sure you do too. I'm picking apart like what this guy's doing wrong, what they're doing right. So it's definitely something good to watch, especially for our true crime community. It's very educating.
Cakes Boo or Cakes Burrow is in the house. And yes, Kay, the Reed trial is going to be fiery. Yeah, I think if you haven't watched this trial, I think you're missing out on a really good one. I think, and this is not going to be as good as I think as the Delphi or the Brian Koberger case. But Buttercup, will Karen take the stand? I don't think there's a chance in Snowball's chance in hell that she's on the stand. I don't know. I think that would be a bad idea because now you have to open her up to, did you say this? Did you not say this? And if there's anything caught on a mic, right? Because remember, there's body cams. There's so many things that we don't know. Was it a hot mic moment? I don't know, Buttercup. I think that would be a bad move.
I think she's going to get on the stand. I think she wants to get on the stand, and she wants to,
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, she's already done news interviews on it, right? She's already been on the news talking about it. So I don't see why she wouldn't get on the stand.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much, and that's a problem for if you're the defense. That's a problem, right? I'm sure the defense was not happy about her doing interviews. I can't imagine. Yeah. I can't imagine that there was a all right. So let's switch. Believe it or not, Mike, we went 47 minutes on that, so we have about 13 minutes to talk about the messes that are going on Long Island. Finally. So let's start off with the body parts case. Finally, 2 people have been charged with murder, right? So they charged Jeffrey Macri and his girlfriend, Alexis Nieves, finally with murder. Now, if you remember, about 2 months ago, there was body parts strewn all over Long Island, Suffolk County, so to speak. Unlike any other day of the week on Long Island, body parts showing up everywhere. Boy, it's getting quite the reputation. But finally, it comes through. But we learned a lot more yesterday. I'm just going to go through them quick. So apparently the 6 people, so this is the 4 people that were arrested and the 2 victims. The victims were Brown and Keneally, if you remember, the husband and wife or the boyfriend and girlfriend. They all robbed a gas station in Copiague, all 6 of them. They were actually living together, not from Yonkers. They no longer lived in Yonkers, apparently. They were living in Amityville. They robbed this gas station, and then the fight broke out about the robbery. I mean, listen, money, the root of all evil, right? So maybe they're fighting over who's going to get what. And they were killed for the robbery that happened in there, and then they decided to butcher them up. So the Tierney, and this is all coming directly from the district attorney, Ray Tierney, yesterday in a presser. So if you didn't see the presser, it's out there. So the gas station was in Copiague. They said inside the home, the crime happened inside the home. They were stabbed and beaten and cut up in the tub. And they recovered all kinds of weapons that were used. And here we go, right? So it took 2 months. So they went to a grand jury. The grand jury said, pass down the true bill or the indictment or the accusatory instrument, whatever, all the same thing. Maybe that'll be another quiz question, right? So just take a note in there. I always do that in the show. Sometimes I'll take a quiz question right out of that. So yeah, an indictment is also known as a true bill and an accusatory instrument. Were you? I got caught off guard just because I kind of like put this one on the shelf, Mike. What was your take on the information that we received yesterday on this?
So I just read up on it a little bit yesterday. Did the other 2 cooperate? Or did they take a plea deal?
See that. See, this is why we don't discuss what we're going to talk about firsthand, because that's the magic question. So you have four individuals that live in the house while this was going on. Two get charged with murder, and two don't. And I knew Mike was going to go right for it. And so, what's your take on that, Mike? Because it's the same as mine. The two that didn't get charged with murder.
Yeah, 100%. They're cooperating. They didn't do the
Cooperating.
killing.
There it is.
Yep.
Cooperating.
Yeah, they're gonna whatever. They're not gonna get probably charged for the robbery, maybe, but they'll take you some kind of a deal so they don't get the murder charge. So it's like you said that Ben Franklin saying.
Ben Franklin. Yep. Well, here it is, right? So the two getting charged with murder, two not getting charged with murder. We can always just assume or speculate that they're helping out. And even their attorney kind of alluded to it. And that's basically where you're going. Actually, both attorneys, Lackey's attorney said something like, well, their hands aren't clean. I thought that was a bad statement, because are you inferring that your clients that you're representing for murders hands aren't clean either on this, and your witnesses against them aren't clean? I thought that was not a wise statement.
It's just crazy that all four were released, right? A couple of months ago. I'm not sure who was the one that was caught shoplifting. Was it this one that's charged with the murder, or that's the other witness, the other perp?
I don't know, but yes, some of them was charged with shoplifting. I kind of discounted that because, yeah, they let him out and they got rearrested again for shoplifting. It might have been the same too. I don't know. Maybe if somebody is in the room that knows, if Raul's in there, he would definitely know. But
I mean,
yes,
the poor community. You know, these guys are chopping up bodies. Man, now we know that they killed the two people, and then they release them. They release them to the public. You know, that's just insanity.
Yeah, I almost wish though that they didn't arrest them at that point and make that whole hoopla, because then it became a political issue, right? So it became a political football between Albany and the district attorney about bail reform and all that other stuff that happened. And Bernie, is this the Babylon Butchers? I guess we want to call them that, right? They lived in Amityville. Babylon was one of the locations where they found remains. They actually found remains in Nassau County too, at Bethpage State Park. They were all over the place. I think they were trying to stage the crime scene to make it look like this was either MS-13 or Long Island serial killer stuff. And that's basically where we're headed with that one. And last but not least, Gilgo Beach in the news again, with this huge search in Manorville, the Pine Barrens, and in, I think it's the Black Sea or the North Sea area of Southampton, where Sandra Castillo was found dead in, I think it was 93, who was the third piece that they were looking at for John Bittroff. So right away, John Bittroff's name's thrown in there. Rex Heuermann's name's thrown in there because they're in Manorville with Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor, and things kind of got muddy. But Mike, I think these searches were very specific. I think they were looking based on some intel, a very good tip, because they were really coordinated. They had this huge area, and they didn't create, that quad. They didn't make the zone search. They looked in specific areas, and they ended up coming with a lockbox that was maybe in a container or something. There's a lot to be discussed in there. Like what's in the box. And was that what they were looking for? I doubt it, because they had so many cadaver dogs.
Yeah, like we discussed before, that's just what we know. What else did they uncover, during this search? And they're still not linking it to Gilgo, are they?
No, there's no link to Gilgo nor link to Bittroff per se, right? But I mean, you had Bittroff lived out near Manorville. He didn't dump his bodies there, right? So Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor are probably not his. Because once again, the MO is way different. I know people say, well, Joe, you said that there was one Long Island serial killer and the MOs are way different. Yeah, but dismemberment to strangling, that's two different things. Dismemberment to picking girls up off the internet anonymously, not having to do it, or just getting lazy, is another possibility. But do we really know anything? No, of course not. Right? We don't know. But the only thing I can think of, Mike, because Tierney did make a statement one time saying that basically we're concentrating on Gilgo 4. which kind of and I think you and I actually discussed that, and I kind of was upset about that because you have all these other victims that deserve justice, and you said, okay, well, maybe they're going to do this in bite-sized pieces, and they're going to just take. They got the four for sure. They got all this DNA. They got all this stuff. So let's concentrate on these four and not going out. Then the bombshell drops with the what's his name? Michael Brown, the lawyer for Rex, requesting all documentation on James Burke and from the FBI and from the Suffolk County. And I think that might have spooked the district attorney because all of a sudden now we're doing searches for other victims or something. So I think, and why? Because the symposium, for those that might not the symposium in January that held by John Ray, and I'm trying to get John back on the show to ask him about this. He had a woman saying that James Burke and Rex Sherman were at a party together. That's a problem for you, right? That's a huge problem for your case. And the chief of police, we already know, has been arrested by the feds and sent to prison. And now you have this thing rear its ugly head.
Yep.
I don't know where this is headed. I want to know what's in the box. But we do know.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? Bernie Heaven, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate the super. It's
somebody gifted me a membership. I was watching your interview this weekend, and I'm like, hey, what's this? Somebody gift. I don't know who it is, but if you're here, thank you very much. That was a nice surprise. I appreciate it.
We have very generous donors here for the memberships here, and I really appreciate that because it's helped this channel grow. And you think about it, Mike, started in August, and we're closing in on 10,000. So my goal at the end of the year was to get 10,000, and I might get it before the summer. So upwards and onwards, we're trying to build a well-informed channel here for sure. And I really want to thank the people who donate and the mods who keep listening.
And that's because of your followers, right? They're liking it. They're sharing it on their social media. I see Viv constantly reposting your tweets and our Instagram. Gisela just followed me. I was like, woo! I was like fanboying her. I was like, wow, she's following me.
Well, Gisela True Crime, who's got some shows today, I'm sure that you want to. She has been awesome to me, and all the Grizzlies. There's lots of Grizzlies here. Helped me really kind of launch this thing and get it up there. So a lot of thanks to Gisela, and also a lot of thanks to the Shaming of Jay. So Jay also helped. He launched me from the very beginning. He really supported me too. So he's coming up today. He does the trials. There's no Karen Reed thing, so I think he's doing Chad Daybell. And Gisela always has some stuff going on. I mean, she's amazing. She had stuff going, breaking news, and she's doing a thing. I don't know how she does it, but she's doing it. So yeah, thanks. I see all the Grizzly bombs coming through. So yes, thank you. And there's Peter. Thanks, Pete. So anything final on the Gilgo thing, Mike? You see any way this is going?
I think again they're keeping the cards close to their vest. I think it's going to reveal very soon what they have. If they're going to charge Rex with it, we'll see. It's just their preparation right now. So I think it's going to be very revealing, hopefully in the next few days.
So we're at 280 people watching right now. So thank you very much for joining us for Roll Call. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. That helps me out a lot, and watching the replay videos if you're doing that. There is do I know about the Gregor trial in New Jersey today, killing a 6-year-old? And yeah, is this the one with the treadmill? That's going on this. Yeah, what a horror show is. So there's a number of cases that I'd like to follow. But now I've gone down this rabbit hole with the Karen Reed thing and the rabbit hole with the Brian Koberger stuff. So it's difficult to kind of, run all this stuff. Mike helps me out a lot, but still a one-man show in many regards. And it becomes a little difficult. Plus, I have school tomorrow, so I'll be all off the charts there with that one. Gonna be doing another video from Manhattan too. So, Mike, any final words before we sign off for this edition of Roll Call?
I just want to let you know that one of my students who had you and took my class, messaged me on Instagram. A lot of my students still follow me on Instagram. They go, "Hey, we saw you, Professor Giacalone, on the news." They get so excited, so it's kind of fun.
And I try to tell them that and $3 will get you a ride on the subway. So yeah, we got some great students too, and we got a lot of our following is because of our students, and we try to help them achieve their goals. And it's great when you get an email from somebody who wanted to become a police officer. They're sitting in your class, they get there, and they get in the academy, and they send you an email saying, "I made
Yeah.
it. Thank you very much." There's nothing better than that. If people ask me why do you teach, it's because of that.
I agree, 100%.
So listen, folks, you enjoy the rest of the day. You got Gizzler True Crime, you got The Shaming of Jay, all kinds of shows going on today. So appreciate it. Maybe Roll Call will be back on Friday if something big happens on tomorrow in the Karen Reed case. Stay tuned and we'll talk to you. You guys have a great day. Mike, you hang out 1 second. Love you guys. Bye.